During flight, a plane has four forces acting on it, which are gravity, lift, drag, and thrust. Gravity and drag oppose the plane's flight, while lift and thrust must be applied to create and maintain it.
Gravity is the force of attraction between two objects. Gravity is what pulls the plane towards the ground. The force of lift has to be higher than the force of gravity in order for the plane to get off the ground. If the force of lift and the force of gravity are exactly the same, the plane will neither rise nor fall. Lift is the force that is needed to overcome gravity. Planes create lift by using the wings and angle of attack, which will be explained later. Drag is the force created when moving through air. The air hitting the plane creates a high pressure in the front of the plane and a lower pressure in the back called the wake. The lower pressure creates a force opposing the airplane's forward motion. Thrust is the force driving the plane forwards. The thrust is provided with the plane's engines, which push air backwards to provide thrust. Thrust must overcome drag in order to achieve the plane's movement.
Prop planes use Newton's third law to push themselves through the air. The angles of the blades are designed to push air backwards as the propeller rotates, which drives the plane forwards. The angle of the blades is called the pitch. There are two types of engines that use propellers: piston engines and turboprops. In a piston engine, fuel is ignited within the engine, creating a gas expansion that drives many pistons forward. The pistons are connected by a rod to a crankshaft, which is then rotated, rotating the propeller. In a turboprop engine, turbines are used to accelerate air through a compressor, which is then ignited along with fuel, which then travels to another set of fans, which then rotate the shaft. The shaft is then attached to a gearbox, which rotates the propeller. Jet engines compress and ignite air to create thrust. The engine first takes in air. The air is then compressed, usually with the use of turbines, which increases the air's pressure. The compressed air then enters a combustion chamber, where the air is mixed with fuel and the mixture ignites. The mixture is then blown out the nozzle in the back of the engine through a turbine.
A turbofan engine is very similar to a turboprop, but the turbofan engine uses a ducted fan instead of traditional propeller. Turbofans are the engine of choice for modern airliners due to their efficiency. Air is channeled to the engine through the inlet, which then goes either to the core or around it. The air in the core goes through a compressor, raising the pressure of the air, which then enters a combustion chamber and is combined with fuel and ignited. Then, it's sent out the back through the exhaust nozzle with the use of turbines. The other portion of the air is propelled by the fan itself, and travels around the core and out the back of the engine, providing additional thrust. The ratio of the air around the core and the air in it is known as the bypass ratio. Higher bypass ratios make for more efficient engines, since a large portion of air can be driven by the fan as well. The airfoil is the shape of all control surfaces on an aircraft. The airfoil is used because it has a special ability to accelerate air over its surfaces due to the unique shape of the curves found on it. It is also able to minimize air drag as a result of its tapered end, which reduces the weight created by air rushing over and around it. On the control surfaces, the shape of the airfoil is manipulated to obtain the desired result and is the basis for controlled flight.
A system of controls located around the aircraft control its direction while in motion. The shape of each component is manipulated to achieve the desired effect. Each plane possesses a set of ailerons located on the wings. It also has a rudder and an elevator located on the tail. Additional flaps on the wings provide extra lift during takeoff and landings.
There are four main types of flaps. The simplest, the plane flap, is attached to the back of the wing and pivots downwards. When it pivots downwards, a larger wake is created, allowing for a rapid descent without gaining airspeed during landing. The second type of flap, the split flap, is attached to the bottom surface of the wing, providing more lift than the plane flap, but retaining the high amount of drag, ensuring that speed does not increase excessively. The third type of flap is a slotted flap. A slotted flap works similar to a plane flap, but it creates an additional gap between the wing and the flap itself. This gap allows air to flow through, reducing drag. The final type, the Fowler flap, is based upon the slotted flap, with additional stages for different situations. As the flap extends further, more drag is created, with additional lift in return.
An angle of attack is crucial for utilizing the wings and creating lift. As a plane takes off, an angle of attack is applied as to provide the plane with an upwards direction. This is accomplished with the use of the elevator. As the wings tilt upwards, air is deflected downwards, which exerts a force upwards, and the plane starts to climb. During flight, a plane maintains the angle of attack either by keeping its nose up or by having the wings attached at a slight angle so that even when the fuselage is level, the wings still provide an angle of attack to generate lift.
Ailerons control the roll of the aircraft. This is done by changing the shape of the airfoil on each wing. The ailerons are flaps that tilt up or down to change the flow of the air. When a plane wants to roll in a particular direction, the aileron on that side tilts upward to direct air upwards, which will then exert a force downwards, forcing that wing down, while the ailerons on the other wing do the exact opposite, lifting that wing upwards, creating the roll. The elevator controls the plane's vertical motion. To accomplish this, it utilizes the airfoil with a movable flap attached to the back. As the flap tilts upwards, air is deflected upwards, exerting a force downwards, tilting the tail backwards, producing a torque force, which in turn tilts the overall direction of the plane upwards. The reverse is true for when the airplane descends. The flap is tilted downwards, air is deflected down, and the tail is pushed upwards from the resulting forces. The rest of the plane will tilt downwards. The rudder works very similar to the elevator, as it is the same concept. As the flap is oriented to the left, air is deflected to the left, exerting a force to the right, which in turn forces the tail to veer to the right, and plane to the left.
Magnificent men, those magnificent men in their flying machine.